Hello, welcome to the remaining two discussions on the May 2019 Management Accounting paper. So previously we have discussed question number 1, 2 and 3 of the same paper. So today we will discuss the remaining two questions, starting with question number 4. Remember, all these questions are compulsory questions. So for the Management Accounting paper at the operational level, you need to write answers for all the questions, including the multiple choice questions. So let's look at how to answer question number 4. Now, since this question is a theoretical question, what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer to the suggested answers produced by the CMA Business School. Okay. You are required to 4.1 outline the objectives of budgetary planning and control systems. So let's move into the answer. Okay, these are the answers produced by the CMA Business School. So the answer for 4.1, outline the objectives of budgetary planning and control system. These are the objectives of budgetary systems. Planning annual operations. As we know, we need to plan the annual operations to a budget, coordinating the activities of various parts of the organization and ensuring that parts are in harmony with each other, that is coordination of activities, communicating the plans to the managers of the various responsibility centers as a tool of communication, motivating managers to strive to achieve organizational goals as a tool to motivate managers, not only managers actually, to motivate managers as well as other employees, controlling activities, and to evaluate the performance of managers. So to summarize, we use budgets for planning, coordination, communicating of activities among various divisions and managers, to motivate people to control activities, and also finally to evaluate the performance of managers by comparing the actual performances with the budgets. So that is the answer to 4.1. So I'll go back to the question. 4.2, how does zero-based budgeting differ from traditional budgeting? So I'll go back to the answer. Traditional budgeting tends to extrapolate the past by adding a percentage increase to the current year. So in traditional budgeting, what we do is we prepare those budgets as incremental budgets by adding a percentage increase to last year figures. Zero-based budgeting avoids the deficiencies of incremental budgeting and represents a move towards the allocation of resources by need or benefit. So in zero-based budgeting, we completely disregard the previous budget or the incremental budgets, and here we budget for activities depending on the need or depending on the benefit that we are going to get from certain activities. Thus, unlike traditional budgeting, the level of previous funding is not taken for granted. So in zero-based budgeting, you can't take anything for granted. You are starting from the scratch. Zero-based budgeting creates a questioning attitude rather than one that assumes that current practice represents the value for money. So in zero-based budgeting, rather than taking the previous year's budget as a correct budget and budgeting an increase on top of that, we question all the expenses, we question all the activities and start from the scratch. Zero-based budgeting focuses attention on outputs in relation to value for money. So when we are budgeting for activities in zero-based budgeting, we focus on the value creation from certain activities or from certain departments. So if a department or an activity is not adding any value, we are not budgeting for those activities. That is the basis of zero-based budgeting. So we can go back to the question 4.3. State the distinguishing features of activity-based budgeting. So what are the features of activity-based budgeting? The aim of activity-based budgeting is to authorize the supply of only those resources which are needed to perform activities required to meet the budgeted production and sales volume. So in activity-based budgeting, what we do is we only cater for those resources which we need for our activities. Whereas ABC means here activity-based costing, whereas ABC assigns resource expenses to activities and then uses activity cost drivers to assign activity cost to cost objects such as products, services or customers. ABB is the reverse of this process. Cost objects are the starting point. The budgeted output determines the necessary activities which are then used to estimate the resources that are required for the budget period. So in activity-based budgeting, we do the reverse of what we are doing for activity-based costing. We start with the cost objects, and from the cost objects, we identify what activities are needed, and for those activities, the required cost volume the required cost driver volume and the cost pool. So in activity-based costing, we go in the other way. We first identify the activities, cost drivers, cost pools, but here we identify with the cost objects and coming back to cost drivers and cost pools. ABB involves the following stages. Estimate the production and sales volume by individual products and customers. So we are starting with the cost objects. Estimate the demand for organizational activities. Determine the resources, cost drivers. Determine the resources that are required to perform organizational activities. Estimate for each resource the quantity that must be supplied to meet the demand, that is cost driver volume, and take action to adjust the capacity of resources to match the projected supply. So from the cost objects, we identify what activities are needed to perform, and for those activities, we identify the cost drivers, cost driver volumes, and then of course how much we need to budget for those activities and for cost drivers. So this is what we do in activity-based budgeting, entirely different to what we do in activity-based costing. So 4.4, distinguish between zero-based budgeting and priority-based incremental budgeting. So distinguish between zero-based budgeting and priority-based incremental budgeting. I will go to the answer again. Zero-based budgeting can be applied selectively to those areas about which management is most concerned and used as a one-off cost reduction program. Some of the benefits of zero-based budgeting can be captured by using priority-based incremental budgets. Priority incremental budgets require managers to specify what incremental activities or changes would occur if their budgets were increased or decreased by a specified percentage, say 10%. Budget allocations are made by comparing the change in cost with the change in benefits. Priority incremental budgets thus represent an economical compromise between zero-based budgeting and incremental budget. So priority incremental budgets are actually a solution for normal incremental budgeting, because in normal incremental budgeting, we have discussed earlier, there are so many shortcomings. That is why people are recommending to go to zero-based budgeting. So without going to zero-based budgeting, this is something that organizations can do. They can, without preparing a normal incremental budget, they can identify the priority areas for which they need to prepare an incremental budget. So after identifying priority areas, if they prepare an incremental budget, that is called as priority-based incremental budget. That is a solution for zero-based budgeting. So I'll read that again. Zero-based budgeting can be applied selectively to those areas about which management is most concerned and used as a one-off cost reduction program. So what it says is, when you apply zero-based budgeting, you can do it as a one-off exercise to the most important areas. Some of the benefits of zero-based budgeting can be captured by using priority-based incremental budgets. Priority incremental budgets require managers to specify what incremental activities or changes will occur if their budgets were increased or decreased by a specified percentage, say 10%. Budget allocations are made by comparing the change in cost with change in benefits. Priority incremental budgets thus represent an economical compromise between zero-based budgeting and incremental budgeting. So it is, as I have discussed, it is a compromise between zero-based budgeting and normal incremental budgeting. This is where you identify the priority areas, and then only for those areas you prepare an incremental budget justifying why you need an increase in expenditure. So this is the answer to 4.4. So now we'll move into question number 5. CLB manufactures a single product and operates a budgetary control system that reports performance using variances on a monthly basis. The company has an agreement with a local supplier and calls off raw materials as and when required. Consequently, there is no inventory of raw materials maintained. The following details are extracted from the budget working papers for 2018. So we are given budget working papers for 2018 for 3 different activities, 50,000, 70,000 and 90,000. So we are given sales revenue, direct materials at 3 kilograms per unit, direct labor at 2 hours per unit, variable overhead at 2 hours per unit, fixed overhead at 2 hours per unit. Fixed overhead absorption rate of 5 rupees per hour. So fixed overhead absorption rate is 5 rupees per unit, 5 rupees per hour, and it is based on an annual budget of 6,000 units. So we can assume total fixed production overheads as 300,000 rupees. At a constant monthly rate throughout the year, with the fixed overhead cost being incurred in equal monthly amounts. The following actual performance relates to February 2018. So we are given the actual performance for one of the months, February 2018. For February 2018, budgeted sales were 6,000. selling price variance was 34,200 adverse, and the sales volume variance was 4,200 rupees adverse. The actual fixed overhead incurred was 57,000. Budgeted profit for February 2018 was 84,000 rupees. So you are required to prepare a statement which reconciles the budgeted profit with the actual profit for February 2018 in part 1, 5.1. So let's see how we can do this. Question number 5. Based on the given details, fixed overhead absorption rate is 5 rupees per hour based on an annual budget of 60,000 units. So I can write the details given. Fixed production overhead absorption rate is 5 rupees per hour based on an annual budget of 60,000 units. Annual budgeted volume (60,000 units). So we are told annual volume is produced at a constant monthly rate throughout the year with the fixed overhead cost being incurred in equal monthly amounts. So we can assume monthly budgeted volume is 1/12 of this 5,000 units, based on which we can calculate the monthly fixed cost. So in the question paper, we are told fixed overhead cost is absorbed at the rate of 5 rupees per hour. And in the table, we are told the rate, each unit require 2 hours per unit. So based on this, we can calculate the monthly fixed cost. Hours per unit. As per the question, it is 2 hours that is given. So hours per unit, 2 hours. Then we can calculate fixed overhead cost per 1 unit. This is the standard fixed overhead cost per 1 unit. We know the fixed production overhead absorption rate is 5 rupees per hour. Each unit needs 2 hours. So standard fixed overhead cost per 1 unit is 10 rupees. This is the standard fixed overhead cost per 1 unit. So since the monthly budgeted volume is 5,000, I can now calculate budgeted fixed overhead cost per month. Budgeted fixed overhead cost per month. That would be 5,000 volume, budgeted volume per month into standard fixed overhead cost per 1 unit. So budgeted fixed overhead cost per 1 month is 50,000 rupees. Now we need to calculate the actual volume for the month. So for that, let me go back to the question. In the actual profit and loss given for February 2018, you can see fixed overhead absorbed is given as 60,000 rupees. So we know fixed overhead absorption rate is 10 rupees per unit. For the month of February, fixed overhead absorbed is 60,000 rupees, which means actual output for February 2018 is 6,000 units. Fixed overhead absorbed. Fixed overheads absorbed for February 2018, that is given as 60,000 rupees. So from this we can calculate actual volume for February 2018. Actual volume for February 2018 must be fixed overhead absorbed for February, which is 60,000, divided by Standard fixed overhead cost per 1 unit 6,000. So basically I can summarize our budgeted monthly volume is 5,000 units. Actual volume for February 2018 is 6,000 units. So with this, we can go to the variances calculation, and also I can say here actual profit for February 2018 based on the details given in the question, 41,970 rupees. Budgeted profit is given as 84,000. Budgeted profit is given as 84,000. So now let's see how to calculate the variances. We have to start with direct material variances. So with regard to direct materials, we have direct material price and efficiency, direct material price variance and the efficiency variance. So first, in the price variance, we have to compare standard material price with the actual material price. The difference in the price we need to multiply by actual quantity purchase. So from the details given in the question, standard material price would be, the question tells us direct material cost at the rate of 3 kilograms per 1 unit. I will show the question to you. Direct material cost at the rate of 3 kilograms per 1 unit when the volume is 50,000 as 600,000 rupees. So when the volume is 50,000 at the rate of 3 kilograms per unit, we are talking about 150,000 kilograms of materials, and the total cost is 600,000 rupees, which means direct material cost per each unit is 4 rupees. So I can show the workings here. Standard direct material price would be 3 into 3 is the standard usage of direct materials into 50,000 the given volume. The 600,000 is the material cost, standard material cost for 50,000. That divide by standard usage of direct materials 3 into volume of output 50,000. So I can get the standard material price as 4 rupees. So actual material price I can calculate from the details given in the question. If I go to the actual profit and loss account, in the actual profit and loss account, direct material cost is 70,680. So actual material cost is 70,680 for using 18,600 kilograms. Therefore, actual material price is 3.8. We are told there are no raw material inventories, so we can assume the quantity used is equal to quantity purchased. So we'll put that assumption here. Quantity used, we'll say material quantity used is same as material quantity purchase. So therefore 70,680, you can see the formula, 70,680 we can divide by 18,600 in order to get the actual material price. So Difference is 0.2. It's a favorable difference. In other words, we are saving on materials 20 cents. So actual quantity purchase, since there are no inventories, 18,600 kilograms. Therefore, we can calculate material price variance. It is a favorable variance. Material price variance. That would be difference of 0.2 into actual quantity purchase, 3,720 favorable. This is the direct material price variance. In the same way, I can calculate direct material usage variance. Direct material usage variance. So standard quantity, I can say standard quantity for actual output. Standard quantity for actual output. And then I know the actual output. Oh, we'll say actual usage. Actual usage. Then I take the difference. Difference I multiply by standard price. Standard direct material price. Then I get the direct material usage variance. So standard quantity. So budgeted quantity for the actual output we know 6,000. But a standard usage of direct materials. Standard usage of direct materials. From the standard data given, we can take standard usage of direct materials is 3 kilograms per 1 unit. So 3 kilograms per 1 unit into actual output, which is 6,000. So standard quantity for the actual output 18,000. Actual usage based on the data given in the question 18,600. So actually we have used more. So therefore it's an adverse variance. And the standard direct material price is 4 rupees. Therefore the total usage variance is 2,400 rupees adverse. This is direct material usage variance. So now I can calculate direct labor price variance. Direct labor price variance. Direct labor price variance also, the methodology will be similar to direct material price variance. Here it will be standard labor rate, not the material price. Standard direct labor rate per hour. Then actual direct labor rate. Difference into actual hours worked. Actual hours will take as paid because there is no difference between paid and work. Then we can calculate the direct labor price variance. So standard direct labor rate per hour. Standard direct labor rate per hour. Usage is 2 hours per unit. And for 50,000, total cost is 1 million. For 50,000 units, total cost is 1 million. So direct labor cost per 1 unit is therefore 40 rupees. Since for each unit we need 2 hours, direct labor rate per hour would be 20 rupees. So I will work out here. Standard direct labor rate per hour. Direct labor cost is 1 million. Each unit require 2 hours. Each unit require 2 hours. direct labor cost is 1 million, each unit requires 2 hours. So for 50,000 we need 100,000 hours, sorry. Therefore standard direct labor rate per hour is 10 rupees. Standard direct labor rate per hour is 10 rupees. For your information, I will work it out here. I will give the formula here. It is 1 million divided by 50,000 units into 2 hours per unit. So for 50,000, we need altogether 100,000 hours. Direct labor cost for 50,000 is 1 million, which means standard direct labor rate per hour is 10 rupees. Actual labor rate per hour, I can get from the question itself, from the actual details. Actual labor rate per hour would be 128,800 divided by 11,500. So actual labor rate per hour would be 128,800 divided by 11,500. So actual direct labor rate per hour 11.2. So there's an adverse variance since the actual labor rate is higher. Adverse labor rate variance of 1.2 for 1 rupee and 20 cents. Actual hours 11,500. Therefore, total direct labor price variance is 13,800 adverse. 13,800 adverse. So this is direct labor price variance. Now I can go to direct labor usage variance. Efficiency variance. Direct labor efficiency variance. That will be similar to material usage variance. I have to first calculate standard hours for the actual output. Standard direct labor hours for actual output. Then actual hours that I know. Actual hours, then difference into standard direct labor rate. Standard direct labor rate per hour. So actual hours I can put here. Actual hours is 11,500. Standard hours for 1 unit is 2. Actual output is 6,000. Actual output is 6,000. So 2 hours into 6,000. Standard hours 12,000. Actual hours 11,500. So there's a difference of 500. We have used less hours. So this is a favorable variance. Standard direct labor rate per hour is 10 rupees. Therefore, direct labor efficiency variance. Direct labor efficiency variance would be 500 hours favorable into 10 rupees standard labor rate per hour. So total direct labor efficiency variance is 5,000 rupees favorable. 5,000 rupees favorable. Now I can go to variable overhead expenditure variance. Variable overhead expenditure variance. So here I have to first identify the standard variable overhead rate per hour, like the standard direct material price, direct labor rate per hour, standard variable overhead rate per hour. Then of course I need to take the actual output. So what I can do is standard variable overhead rate per hour, or directly I can take standard variable overhead rate per unit. I can multiply that by actual output. Then I will compare that with actual variable overhead cost in order to calculate the variable overhead efficiency variance. So A standard variable overhead rate per unit, I can calculate from the budgeted details given. As you can see, when the volume is 50,000, variable overhead cost is 400,000. In other words, variable overhead, standard variable overhead cost per 1 unit is 8 rupees. Standard variable overhead cost per 1 unit is 400,000 divided by the volume of 50,000, 8 rupees per unit. Actual output during the month, we know 6,000. So I'll write it here, 6,000. So actual variable overhead cost, again from the details I can take, actual variable overhead cost for the period is 47,150. 47,150. Yeah, I will add another line. Standard variable overhead cost for actual output. So standard variable overhead rate per 1 unit 8, actual output 6,000. So standard variable overhead cost for the actual output 48,000. Actual variable overhead cost 47,150. Actual cost is less. So therefore it is a favorable variance. Variable overhead expenditure is a favorable variance. Now I can go to variable overhead efficiency variance. Variable overhead efficiency variance. So when calculating the variable overhead efficiency variance, I need to calculate standard variable overhead let's say standard hours for the actual output. Standard hours for the actual output that I need to compare with the actual hours. Take the difference and multiply by standard variable overhead absorption rate per hour. Standard variable overhead absorption rate per hour. Okay, let's see how to do this. Here there's a small adjustment we need to make. I will calculate the expenditure variance in a different format because I think that format is more appropriate than the format that I have followed here. So instead of the cost per unit, I will go by variable overhead rate per hour. So what I can say is standard variable overhead rate per hour. Standard variable overhead rate per hour. Again, I can go to the original details given in the question. Standard variable overhead cost is 400,000 for 50,000 units. And for these 50,000 units, there are 100,000 hours because for each unit, there are 2 hours. So for 50,000 units, there are 100,000 hours. Cost is 400,000 rupees. So I can say standard variable overhead rate per hour, cost is 400,000 when the volume is 50,000 and for each unit, you need 2 hours. So number of hours, standard hours 100,000, standard cost 400,000. So standard variable overhead rate per hour 4 rupees. This I can multiply by actual hours since variable overheads are absorbed for the actual hours. Actual hours I can get from the question. Actual hours is 11,000. You can see here actual hours for variable overhead is 11,500. So actual hours I can put here 11,500. Therefore, I can calculate standard variable overhead cost. Standard variable overhead cost for actual hours. That is 4 into 11,500. This I can compare with actual variable overhead cost. Actual variable overhead cost based on the profit and loss provided is 47,150. Actual cost is more, therefore there's a adverse variance. Variable overhead efficiency variance. Variable overhead efficiency variance is 1,150 adverse. Variable overhead efficiency variance is, sorry, variable overhead expenditure variance is 1,150 adverse. So I repeat, to calculate the variable overhead expenditure variance, I first calculate, I changed the model. Earlier, I have calculated the standard variable overhead cost per unit, but I have changed the model to calculate the variable overhead rate per hour, which is 4 rupees. How I got this 4 rupees? Because from the budgeted data given, for the volume of 50,000, standard variable overhead cost was given as 400,000. So for each unit, we need 2 hours, which means for 50,000, we need standard 100,000 hours. For the standard 100,000 hours, standard cost is given as 400,000. Therefore, standard variable overhead rate for 1 hour is 4 rupees. That we are absorbing based on the actual hours that we have worked. Actual hours given in the actual P&L as 11,500. So at the rate of 4 rupees per hour for the actual hours 11,500, our standard variable overhead cost absorbed is 46,000. That we have to compare with the actual variable overhead cost, which is 47,150. Therefore, we have a variable overhead expenditure variance of 1,150 adverse. Variable overhead expenditure variance 1,150 adverse. So now I can move into variable overhead efficiency variance. For that, I need to calculate actual hours that is given. Actual hours we have worked 11,500. That I have to compare with the standard hours. Standard hours for the actual output. Now we know for each unit we need 2 standard hours and our actual volume is 6,000. So for each unit we need 2 standard hours. Actual volume is 6,000. Therefore standard hours for the actual output is 12,000. We have worked only 11,500 hours. Therefore we have worked less hours than the standard hours. We can calculate the difference. Difference is 500. It is a favorable amount. This difference in hours we need to multiply by standard variable overhead rate per hour. Standard variable overhead rate per hour that we can get from the previous calculation, 4 rupees. Therefore, variable overhead efficiency variance is 500 hours favorable into 4 rupees standard rate per hour, 2,000 rupees favorable. So this is the variable overhead efficiency variance. Right. So now we can move into fixed overhead variances. Fixed overhead expenditure variance. So fixed overhead expenditure variance. Here we compare actual fixed overhead with the budgeted fixed overhead. So actual fixed overhead we can get from the actual P&L. Actual fixed overhead is we are told fixed overhead absorbed is 60,000 and also there is an overabsorption of fixed overhead. Therefore, we need to calculate actual fixed overhead by using those details. So I'll have a small work in here. Fixed overhead absorbed is 60,000, but this includes an overabsorption of 3,000. Therefore, actual fixed overhead is 60,000 minus 3,000. In other words, actual fixed overhead is 57,000. I'll explain that. In the P&L given to us, we are told fixed overhead absorbed is 60,000. So fixed overhead absorbed is an absorption figure. And also we are told there's an overabsorption of 3,000. So based on these two information, we can calculate the actual amount of fixed overhead for the period or for month of February. That is 57,000. In other words, actual fixed overhead is 3,000 less than the amount absorbed. So that I can put here. Actual fixed overhead. Actual fixed overhead is 57,000. And budgeted fixed overhead. Budgeted fixed overhead. Earlier we have calculated to be 50,000. So budgeted fixed overhead, we know the budgeted volume. And also I think previously we have calculated budgeted fixed overhead cost per month is 50,000. So actual fixed overhead 57,000, budgeted fixed overhead 50,000. So now I can calculate the fixed overhead expenditure variance. Fixed overhead expenditure variance. That would be 7,000 adverse, since actual expenditure is more than budgeted expenditure. This is a working, so I will separate that. So actual fixed overhead from the P&L given 57,000, budgeted fixed overhead is 50,000. Earlier we have calculated. Budgeted fixed overhead is less than the actual fixed overhead. Therefore, variance is an adverse variance. Actual fixed overhead, how we have obtained from the P&L given. In the P&L given, fixed overhead absorbed is 60,000, but there is an overabsorption of 3,000, which means actual amount is 3,000 less than the overhead absorbed, 57,000. Now I can go to fixed overhead volume variance. So in the fixed overhead volume variance, we are basically comparing the actual volume with the budgeted volume. Actual volume for the month of February, we know 6,000. Budgeted volume each month, we know 5,000. Difference is 1,000, but it is a favorable difference since actual volume is more than the budgeted volume. In other words, we have produced more than what we have budgeted. So this variance is actually a favorable variance or a favorable quantity. So this difference in the volume, we need to multiply by standard fixed overhead cost per 1 unit. Standard fixed overhead cost per 1 unit, that also we have calculated earlier. Standard fixed overhead cost per 1 unit is 10. So therefore fixed overhead volume variance I can calculate here. Fixed overhead volume variance is 10,000 rupees favorable. So we have calculated all variances now. Sales variances are given to us by the examiner. So based on these variances, now we can do the profit reconciliation. Profit reconciliation. Profit reconciliation. So when reconciling profits, I am starting with the budgeted profits and move into actual profits. In the profits using the variances. So budgeted profit is again given by the examiner. Budgeted profit is 84,000. To this, we need to adjust the variances. There will be favorable variances, there will be adverse variances. So we need two columns for that. Favorable as well as adverse variances. And finally, we can come to the actual profit. Actual profit. Actual profit as per the question is 41,970. Now we can put the variances in order to reconcile the profits. So we'll start the reconciliation now. So I'll start with direct material variances, direct material price and usage. Direct material price variance. Direct material price variance. It is a favorable variance, 3,720. Direct material usage variance. Direct material usage is 2,400 adverse. Direct labor rate variance. $13,800 adverse. Direct labor efficiency. $5,000 favorable. Then variable overhead expenditure. Is 1,150 adverse. Variable overhead efficiency is 2,000 favorable. Then fixed overhead expenditure $7,000 adverse. Fixed overhead volume 10,000 favorable. Then we have two sales variances. Sales price variance that is given by the examiner. You can see here sales price variance and the volume variance is given by the examiner. Selling price variance was 34,200 adverse. So sales price 34,200 adverse. And sales volume 4,200 adverse. Sales volume 4,200 adverse. So I can get the subtotals of the variances. Total favorable variances 20,720 and the total of adverse variances 62,750. I can take the net difference here. Adverse variances are more. Net difference of the variances is 42,030 negative. Therefore, the actual profit, starting with the budgeted profit of 84,000, actual profit will be 41,970. I can show it here, the reconciliation. 84,000 plus the variances, you will get 41,970, which is the actual profit. So this is the profit reconciliation between budgeted profit and the actual profit using the variances. In other words, the answer for 5.1. Answer for 5.1. So now we'll move into 5. So in 5.2, The examiner is asking outline the main features of just-in-time philosophy. So I'll go to the suggested answers given by the CMA Business School to get the answer for this. You can see outline the main features of just-in-time philosophy. Many companies seek to eliminate and or reduce the cost of non-value-adding activities by introducing a just-in-time system. So the main purpose of introducing a just-in-time system is to remove the non-value-adding activities, because there is no point of keeping those activities since they are not adding any value for the organization or for the customers. The aims of a JIT system are to produce the required items at the required quality and in the required quantities at the precise time that they are required. So when we have a JIT system, what we do is actually we produce the required quantity at the required quality exactly at the time that they are wanted. In other words, we don't keep inventory. In particular, JIT aims to eliminate waste by minimizing inventories and reducing cycle to throughput times. That is, time left from when customers place an order until the time when they receive the desired product or service. So when you have a JIT system, you can reduce unnecessary throughput time or the cycle time of production. Because as soon as you receive an order, if you are ready, then of course you can manufacture and give the outputs to customers. Adapting a JIT manufacturing system involves moving from a batch production functional layout to a cellular flow line manufacturing system. So when you have a JIT manufacturing system, you will have to completely move away from batch manufacturing. In other words, you can't manufacture products as batch of products. In other words, if you are manufacturing currently as a batch line, then of course you have to move away from the batch line to manufacture for the orders only. The JIT philosophy also extends to adopting JIT purchasing techniques whereby the delivery of materials immediately precedes their usage. By arranging with suppliers for more frequent deliveries, inventories can be cut to a minimum. So in JIT, for JIT to work effectively, you have to have very good relationship with suppliers. In other words, there should be reliable suppliers who can deliver quality materials at the right time. In other words, there should not be a delay in the supply of materials. Whenever you want materials to start your production, there should be materials available with you. So for that purpose, you have to have reliable suppliers who are ready to deliver materials exactly when you want. So these are some of the features in just-in-time philosophy. With this, we complete May 2019 Management Accounting past paper. So previously in a video lesson, I have discussed question numbers 1, 2, and 3. So now I have discussed question number 4 and 5. So with this, we complete the entire paper. If you have any questions, then you can ask through the CMA virtual learning platform, or you can personally WhatsApp me or email me. So thank you very much.